Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the Father Talks podcast. I'm your host, Mike D. I have a special guest today, Mr. Russell Van Brockland. Russell is a dyslexia professor. Russell, welcome to the show. I am happy to have you here, man. I know it's taken us a few months to kind of get together. You have a pretty packed schedule, with teaching and talking on different podcasts and everything. Really teaching the world, educating the world, really on this issue with dyslexia. So, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me.
Okay. Hey, so give us a little bit of your background before we get into too much, because I know you have a lot to talk about.
Well, just so everybody knows, I have about the worst case of dyslexia you'll ever see.
Okay.
What got me into this, because this is the last thing I was supposed to do with my life. I was supposed to be a bureaucrat for the New York State government. It
Okay.
was the late 90s. I was finishing up college. I wanted to know how laws were created, not some class I wanted to know. So I stupidly signed up for the New York State Assembly internship program. And I
Okay.
say stupidly because when I showed up, I said, here's my neuropsychological evaluation. I have a first grade reading and writing ability, so I couldn't do the internship. So the speaker at the time, his name was Sheldon Silver. He told his underlings to get a committee together and that they were going to accommodate the living daylights out of me and make this work. He didn't care about the cost. And that's exactly what they did. They put me over in the Majority Leaders Program and Counsel's office because they had
Okay.
3 administrative assistants, treating me like a grad student. For the big paper, I gave a hours-long presentation and Q&A instead. They wrapped all that up and put in 15 credits of A-. Then that goes back to the State University of New York Center at Buffalo's political science department. And they look at these massive, insane accommodations and we don't like these. So we're lowering your grade from 15 credits of A-. Guess what they lowered it to?
What's that?
15 credits of F.
What?
Yep. And it's still there 29 years later.
Okay.
So
So
then
yeah,
what's that?
what's the justification for that?
Well, they did. The accommodations were absolutely extraordinary, and they didn't like them.
Okay. So because you got accommodations, we're gonna give you a bad grade. But isn't that what accommodations are for? To help you
Well,
forward?
the accommodations were absolutely extraordinary, and they didn't like them. So
Okay.
at that point, I said, I'm done with the discrimination. I'm going to solve dyslexia.
Okay.
And I actually did. So what I did is I went to my professors and I said, where can I go to force myself to learn to read and write in grad school?
Okay.
And they said, if you like politics, it's easy, law school. So will you read and write more than anybody? So I went and I signed up for 2 audits in law school. And what they do in law school is they use the Socratic method.
Okay.
And that's where if you don't know the answer, they will ask you questions that you don't know to embarrass you publicly until you can eventually adapt. That didn't happen to me. I didn't respond as the professor's student. I responded as the professor's equal. And he was a professor longer than I was alive at that point.
Okay.
So he starts going after me. I start going after him. And then he's kind of perplexed. We're going back and forth, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. I can't beat him. He can't beat me. At the end of that, he throws up his arms, said, Russell, you couldn't be any more correct. In the interest of time, I have to move on to the next case. I learned to read within a month. I learned to write within a couple of years. Then I went back to the New York State Senate and I said, I found a solution for dyslexia. I want you to fund my dyslexia research program,
Okay.
which they don't do. So my senator at the time was Senator Joe Bruno, and he sent me over to the New York State Education Department. At the time, he was the majority leader of the state Senate. At the time, it was 3 men in a room. They decided things and their underlings did whatever. So having the majority leader of the state Senate send me over to the education department, they had to take me very seriously. So they said, where is this out of? I said, Buffalo. And they said, okay, we want a State University of New York distinguished professor in psychology to evaluate the program. And if you can't get this done, if it's not a good evaluation, you're done. So I went out there thinking this can't be hard. There's 2 professors only that meet that criteria. One who happened to be the one who gave me the original evaluation that started this craziness. Her name was Dr. Irene Holichka. 3 days of testing, over 20 hours, and of the smartest woman I ever met, just beating me up mentally, making sure this is real. So what she said in her report was, I evaluated this kid a couple of years ago. His base reading and writing is at the 6th grade level. When he goes from a part of his brain that doesn't work to one that does work, his writing jumps up to about the 70th percentile of entering grad students. Okay, then it's a light switch, goes on and off. Here's the 5-page report that explains it. So I go back to the education department. This is exactly what they were not expecting,
Right.
but they had to take it very seriously. So then they said, I have to connect it with current research. The only professor that made any sense, his name was Professor James Collins. Going through him was supposed to take a couple of years. I did it in less than 2 weeks. Noticing how well I'm doing in grad school. That's what we'll be coming back to. So
Right.
then I got second place in the university-wide competition for 15,000. We tested out on a couple of students. The first student, her name was Michaela. I want to let everybody know I cheated. I only worked with students who were like me, highly motivated, highly intelligent. I wanted to see what I could do with the best. Those students, the first one, her name was Michaela. She was a 17-year-old high school junior who was reading and writing at the 8th grade level. And we give her a test for entering grad school students in writing, which she promptly scored in the 0 percentile.
Right.
5 months later, she's scoring in about the 50th percentile. And then after one more student, we get funding from the state. We're in a public school, 1 class period a day for the school year. The students go from essentially the 0 percentile for most of them on the GRE writing assessment up to the average range of entering graduate students. They all went on to college. They all graduated, GPAs of 2.5 to 3.6. The average cost to the state was under $900 a student compared to the best dyslexic college at the time. We were 3x as successful. We were, and they were over $100,000. So we were under 1% of the cost. And that's how I got started.
Well, I mean, it's a good story. I like it. So, all right. So you are a severe dyslexic.
Yes.
But you are highly intelligent because, okay, you know what? Let's back up.
My IQ, Dr. Litchka found was 127.
Okay. So let's back up. For those listening who don't know exactly what dyslexia is, give us a brief description of dyslexia. Let's start there.
Why don't I show you what dyslexia is? This is the top book in the field, Overcoming Dyslexia by Dr. Sally Shaywitz from Yale.
Okay.
That's dyslexia. So do you see how the back part of your brain has this massive neuroactivity?
Yes.
Back part of a dyslexic has next to none. Do you see that?
Yes.
But the front part of the dyslexic brain is about 2.5 times overactive.
Yes.
Okay. So what we need to do is stop worrying about this and start doing this.
Okay.
Okay. So you said your son might be dyslexic.
Yeah.
Would you like to make up a name for your son, or would you like to tell us his first name?
Let's say Thomas. We'll say Thomas.
Okay. Now, describe Thomas when he was in elementary or middle school. Was he writing apparently randomly placed sentences sentences that appear to be randomly placed misspelled words?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to tell you how to fix that.
Okay.
Right now. Takes about 10 minutes.
Okay.
Now, just so everybody knows, how far did you go in your education?
I actually have a master's degree in business administration.
Okay. So you're statistically one of the most educated percentiles in the United States. I'm going to ask you 2 questions that I give to 7-year-olds.
Okay.
If they're not trick questions, if you answer them correctly, what I'm about to tell you will work. If you don't, you're going to get incredibly confused.
Okay.
And then have an epiphany on what dyslexia really is.
Oh, shit. All right. Okay.
So now, Thomas, what I need to know before we begin, when he was in elementary school, what was his specialty? What was his area of extreme interest and ability?
Man, honestly, it was always just things that he could do with his hands.
Okay, just one thing. It doesn't matter what it is. One thing.
I'm going to say art.
Art. Okay. So first thing we're going to do, you're going to reteach Thomas. Let's imagine he's in elementary school. First thing you're going to do is you're going to pull out a laptop computer, not an iPad, not an iPhone, and certainly not handwriting. And you're going to type out hero, +sign. What are we talking about? And Thomas is going to copy that until it's correct. And I don't care if he's typing with finger like this. I don't care. I don't care how long it takes. He'll eventually get quicker. He's going to copy that until it's correct. Then we're going to swap out hero for Thomas. So we got Thomas +sign. What are we talking about?
Okay.
Then we're going to go to a list of 10 things that Thomas really, really likes, and then 10 things Thomas really, really dislikes. And on the thing that he really, really likes, the first thing is art. So we got Thomas +sign. What are we talking about? We're going to swap out what are we talking about for art. So we got Thomas +sign art. Now, I'm going to try to fool you with 2 of the simplest questions ever. If you answer these correctly, this will work. Otherwise, you're going to get extremely confused and then have an epiphany on what dyslexia really is.
All right, let's go.
Do you think I can fool you with 2 of the simplest questions ever?
I'm suddenly terrified because I feel like we're on that, are you smarter than, what's that, a 5th grader?
Yes, but unlike that, I'm going to ask you questions that I give to 7-year-olds.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. So
Let's
we
go.
got Thomas plus sign art.
Thomas plus
We
sign
need to
art.
swap the plus sign out for a word. Here's my question. Does
Okay.
Thomas like or dislike art?
Thomas likes art.
Yes, but that's not what I asked. Let's try it
Okay.
again. We got
Okay.
Thomas plus sign art.
Plus
We have
sign
to
art.
swap out the plus sign for a word. Does Thomas like or dislike art?
Switch. Wait a second. What the hell? All right. That shoom completed with. All right. So we have to switch out. All right. Let's back up because that one totally
Okay, so we got Thomas plus sign art.
Thomas plus sign art.
We have to swap out the plus sign for a word. Here's
Okay.
my very specific question. Does Thomas like or dislike art?
Does Thomas like or dislike art? Thomas likes art.
That's not what I asked. Do I have you thoroughly confused?
It's beyond thoroughly confused.
Okay, now I want you, now do you see this level of confusion?
Yes.
Imagine you're 8 and this is all the time in a public school.
Right.
You're a full-grown man dealing with confusion, but when you're an 8-year-old boy,
Exactly.
so are you ready for your epiphany?
Yes.
Okay, let's go back to the science. Here's what happened. You're processing this in this part of the brain with all that
Exactly.
neural activity. Thomas has nothing going on back here, like literally
Yeah.
nothing going on here. Okay. So when I asked, does Thomas like or dislike art? You did what almost every educated person does. You automatically added the S to make it a proper sentence. Thomas
shit.
has nothing going on back here. He doesn't know how to add the S. He would have just said Thomas like art.
Shit. Okay.
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 Now, how do we fix this? Well, you have an MBA.
Yes.
So let's say I'm just going to mention the name of let's say the Windward School came to you when
Okay.
Thomas was young and said, if you, and the same stats now as they did decades ago, they have
Okay.
a proven 98% success rate. They're in the Upper East Side of Manhattan. You send them Thomas for 4 to 5 years, and they would send him back to where the school he came from as one of the most educated young men on the planet for $75,000 a year for 4 to 5 years. Now, with an MBA, if you wanted to, you could figure out a way to pay for that.
Absolutely.
The rest of your family would be eating spaghetti every night. You'd be driving 15-year-old cars, and the other kids would have nothing for summer camp, but parents have figured that out.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, I'm going to show you here how to fix this so you don't
Okay.
have to do that. I'm just saying, if you select that option or similar schools, you'll be very happy with what they do. Most
Okay.
parents can't afford it. So here's how we fix it. What we have to do is let's look at the science. Let's forget this and let's look at this. The front part of the brain is 2.5 times overactive. Deals with word analysis followed by articulation. So what we would do is I would ask Thomas to read what he wrote out loud. Thomas like art. And I'd say, Thomas, read it out loud again and answer this question. Does that sound generally correct? He would say no. And I would say, Thomas, fix it. Thomas likes art. And then we'd practice that for the other 9 likes and 10 dislikes. Do you see how that's a simple form of word analysis? Okay, then we have to apply articulation. So then we would go because reason 1. Give me a simple reason of why Thomas liked art in elementary school.
He got to work with his hands.
Thomas liked art because he got to work with his hands. Now, do you see how that's a simple form of articulation?
Yes.
So we moved it from the back part of here with nothing's going on to the front part where we have 2.5 times the activity.
Okay.
Okay, so what we would do now is we have 2 problems. The grammar is horrible. So we tell Thomas to keep reading what he wrote out loud and answer doesn't sound generally correct until the whole thing sounds correct. That might be 4 or 5 times. That gets rid of the horrific grammar problems. Now you have some little mistakes and some medium mistakes, which teachers are trained to deal with. Now we got the spelling problem, which I can assure you, if you look back, that was a nightmare for you, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Here's how you fix it. It's real simple. You tell Thomas to drop the period. Then each time he rewrites, you tell him, type out the sentence. Every time he makes a mistake, he has to retype the entire sentence.
Okay.
And it's going to be about 3 to 13 times typically. Each time he's going to say, I'm not going to make that mistake again. He keeps making it. And he keeps concentrating harder and harder each time he makes a mistake until eventually he gets it right. And then we're going to do the same thing for the other 9 likes and 10 dislikes. Then we're going to keep exactly what he wrote and add and reason 2. Okay. And then we do that for the 10 likes and 10 dislikes. We keep that exact same thing. And then we go and we add a third reason for 10 likes and 10 dislikes. For a 9-year-old, just, most parents do 10 to 15-minute sessions. A 9-year-old, that'll take about 5 months at home.
Okay.
For a 13-year-old, you're down to a couple of weeks typically. For an 18-year-old, you're typically within a week. So
So
unlike,
what
yeah,
makes
so go ahead.
what makes the difference in age range?
Well, with my material, the older you are, the quicker you pick it up.
Okay.
You learn faster. You have a master's degree, which means I could give you a subject matter on anything you're decent with, and you'll learn it far faster than somebody with a bachelor's degree. You've been taught to learn. Okay. The older kids just have much stronger, just a lot more cognitive horsepower.
Gotcha. Okay.
Now, with typical for that $75,000 your school is telling you about, the older you are, the longer it takes.
Really?
Yes, because they're literally going back to kindergarten and going forward.
Okay. So you found a simpler solution.
I had to make it much more efficient. Now, that is step 3 of the model. The first step, and this is critical, far more than anything, is let me ask you about Thomas.
Okay.
I want you to think back to when you were raising him. Have you noticed that when there was a class that he really freaking loved, he worked at it like crazy? He was really into it.
Well,
And
absolutely.
then if there was something that he absolutely hated, it was World War III to get him to do anything.
1,000%.
Okay, let me explain what's going on here. By our very nature, dyslexics, ADD students, and ADHD students are by our very nature academic specialists.
Yes.
But our school system wants us to specialize. I'm sorry, wants us to wants us to become well-rounded before we specialize. So I want you to think back to when you were in your MBA program. First of all, did you ever wonder how some of those students got admitted?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, listen, I will tell you flat out. I wonder how I got admitted because I have some severe ADD, and it required me to be medicated, and I went through most of my life not knowing that I had it.
Okay,
You know,
so and I'll use you, but I just wanted to look when you're in your MBA program. Did you notice
Yeah.
that you did really well there?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you notice it was so much easier for you in the MBA program than in undergrad?
Yes.
Okay. And did you also wonder how some of the people got in there because the professor's asking them to contribute, to come up with things, and they're like deer in the headlights, no idea.
Yes.
Okay. That's because being ADHD and in grad school is profoundly unfair. You're
Okay.
now dealing with the front part of the brain. You're like a dyslexic, but you don't have the reading and writing issues anywhere near as severe. Okay. So let's start off with what the most important thing is. I'll give you an example, then I'll use you as an example. The most motivated kid I ever worked with, her name is Casey. I never saw this before, Casey. I'll never see this again. Of the hundreds of teachers I taught, they will never see this. It's a one-off edge case. Make a point.
Wow.
I met Casey was from a lower middle class family in the Midwest. I met her when she was 10. She turned 11 over the summertime at the end of 5th grade. Casey was fanatically interested in Theodore Roosevelt, so I assigned her this little book, The Rise of Theodore Roosevelt, all 900 pages of it.
Okay.
This is for 10th grade to first year college level, depending on who you ask. Let's use 10th grade. This book also won the Pulitzer. Casey insisted on doing reading first, so I gave her a simple process. Nobody told her this. Nobody even thought about it. Casey went up to her room and shut the door for 3 hours a night for the next 6 months, most of the days during the summertime.
Okay.
At the end of that time frame, you could flip to this random page, point to that random word, and she would tell you what the dictionary definition was. Casey jumped 8 grade levels in 6 months, and I worked with her for 15 minutes a week.
Okay.
Okay? That's not the point. The point is, when I asked Casey, when we moved from a book that she loved to one she hated, how much did her motivation drop? She said about 50%. For most ADD, HD, or dyslexic kids, it's dropping 75 to 90% once you step outside their speciality. So during the intervention period, until your kid's at grade level or above, you have to focus on their speciality, their area of extreme interest and ability. I tend to get them an audiobook and a book that they're interested in, where they like the narrator, that are a couple of years ahead of where you want them to be so they can grow into it. Okay? So I want you to think in your speciality. Give me one of your specialities, your area of extreme interest and ability.
Goodness.
Anything, any one of them would be fine.
As an adult, I would say fitness is probably my extreme, speciality. Things that I'm extremely, interested in. It would be health and fitness.
Okay. So when you're thinking about fitness, do you have ideas flying around your head at light speed, but with little to no organization?
All the time.
Okay.
All the time.
That tells me you're ADD, ADHD, or mildly dyslexic.
Okay.
Question number 2. When you're thinking about writing about fitness, fingers, keyboard, You have the idea in your head. You take your fingers, put it on the keyboard. Does it ever fly out of your head, leaving you with an empty brain?
Uh,
That's
I'll,
you or it's not you. Okay. Then you're not dyslexic. Okay. Well, you said you're ADHD.
yeah.
That's what this tells me. Okay. So, and just so people know what, from a practical standpoint, what's the difference between dyslexic and ADD and ADHD? Dyslexic is like ADD and ADHD, but with severe reading and writing issues. Okay. So now, so what you told me in your specialty, you have ideas flying around your head at light speed, but with little to no organization. That's the second point of the model.
Mhm.
So instead of, I want you to imagine if you were asked this question, and let me know. The constraints are: you have access to a university library. The output is a high school term paper, and you can't ask anybody any questions. If you were asked to answer this question in a paper, 10th grade level, what effect did Martin Luther King's famous "I Have a Dream" speech have on the American Civil Rights Movement of the 1960s? Would that be easy for you to do, or do you find that kind of difficult?
And when we say not asking for help, you
You
can.
you cannot ask anybody any questions.
So you just go into the library. You have to find all this information. I would be effing A.
Okay. And here's the reason why. Big picture, eventually going to the details. Do you see, for people like us, that's like grabbing fog?
Yes,
Okay. Do you find it surprising that I know this about you?
a little bit. Yeah,
Okay. Now, just think about this. You have a master's degree. I'm
yeah,
asking you to go into a university library and write a 10th grade paper. Most people with master's degrees who are gen ed would find that to be a joke. But for
yeah,
people like us, because it's big picture and eventually going down to the details, it's like grabbing fog
yeah.
because our brain is different. That's what dads need to know. Okay. So, how do we fix this? We flip the script. We start off at a very specific point, very specific. And then we slowly go out from there. So, example, we would ask what personally compelled Martin Luther King to want to give his famous speech. You
Hmm.
go to one book, you go to his biography, you go to that time period, and you figure out why he wanted to do it. That answer, you'll then answer the question. That answer will then give you another question, which gives you an answer, gives you a question, gives you an answer. That forces the dyslexic brain to organize itself by using writing as a measurable output.
Okay.
Okay. So what we do is, here's the secret. We start off with the kid's speciality, their extreme interest and ability. We teach from the specific to the general, word analysis followed by articulation. Parents want to know how effective that was. So I'm having an upcoming book. If you write, you can read. My part of it is with Kimberly. We met on December 27th of 2024. Kimberly is a homeschooling religious mom with 5 kids. She has some college, and a few weeks before our conversation, she paid $700 to the state of Ohio to test her kids. 4 of her 5 kids are gen ed, and she taught them brilliantly how to read using traditional methods. But her 10-year-old dyslexic son, Reed, was different. He scored in the 11th percentile in reading, 4th percentile in writing.
Mhm.
Sound familiar?
Yes, very.
Okay. Well, I worked with her for half an hour a week for the next 8 months. She worked with Reed for an hour and a half a week, 3 half-hour sessions on average. Most parents do 10 to 15-minute sessions. Over the
Mhm.
summertime, Reed's friends came to him and said, "Reed, we want you in public school to be with us socially." So, beginning of August, he was tested, called 8.5 months later. He's tested in a public school. Mom's miles away, much better data. If she doubled or even tripled what he did, he would still be in special ed, away from his friends, unhappy kid. That didn't happen. His reading went from the 11th percentile to the 64th.
Mhm.
His writing went from the 4th percentile to the 65th. His grammar jumped to the 97th percentile. As of April of 2026, Reed is in mainstream classes with his friends, getting mainly A's and B's. Kimberly solved in less than 9 months, part-time, what normally takes private schools years. That's how powerful this is.
Shit. Okay. So, all right, let's back up. So he was a he was taught at home and just 30 minutes a day.
30 minutes a day, 3 times a week for 8 months.
Okay. Well, wow. All right. So let's talk about this method of how this works.
Okay. Well, I gave you the method for the young kids.
Yes.
So for the older kids, the
Okay.
problem is advanced body paragraphs. So I'd like to go into that next. I just want everybody to know we show parents how to do this on a learning platform called school.com. We
Okay.
have a course that teaches basic body paragraphs. I'm assuming they've gone through it for this one. We're doing the advanced stuff.
Okay.
Okay. You have a master's degree. I can almost guarantee you, I'm going to show you how to write a better body paragraph.
Face is not me being in denial because let me tell you something. I worked my ass off to get my master's degree, and there were times where like I did not think that I would be able to complete it, and I spent hours in front of my computer because it was just trying to process information, and the information is dry, college level stuff. It's boring.
Oh,
You just
no,
have
this isn't college. This is grad level.
great. Can hardly wait.
No,
Okay.
but no, you said in your master's, yes. But the thing
Yeah.
is, do you remember when you were in class discussions and they called on you?
Yes.
Remember how well you answered the question?
Yes.
Okay. That's grad school. It requires an insane amount of work. Okay. That's just natural. Everybody had to do that. Otherwise, I want you to think the ones that didn't do the work. Do you remember when they're going,
Yes. Absolutely.
did that ever happen to you where you were literally going, dirt, dirt?
No, because I I had to work my ass off.
Right. Everybody did. It's a graduate program.
Yes.
Everybody had to put in that amount of work. When I was taking, because just so you know, I also finished most of an MBA. I was
Mhm.
taking one class at the University of Chicago with one of their top two professors as an audit. The guy who was crushing everybody was an African American gentleman, and I asked him, how is he doing this? He was a Navy SEAL. And he
Okay.
said, after Hell Week, the University of Chicago isn't anything. And he answered to his question was he got about 3 to 4 hours of sleep a night. Besides that, he was out on social engagements or studying. So yeah, everybody works incredibly hard in grad school. That's just normal.
Yes.
The thing is, you responded well. You weren't going. That I see people that were valedictorians that got crushed in grad school because they couldn't apply what they had, and the professors have no tolerance in any program if you can't just lead it in a discussion. They're training you to be leaders. They're training you to be masters or they have no tolerance for anything like that if you can't
Right.
answer. So what I'm about to do is I'm going to show you something that I would say would take anybody in your audience who has a master's degree, anybody outside of a PhD, they're going to learn something how to improve their writing.
Let's go.
Okay. How do I know? It's from a book called The Craft of Research,
Okay.
which just, what happened. I went down after I presented things in New York City. I went down to present in New York City after I had that huge successful program that New York State funded. And I walked in there cocky. I solved dyslexia. Man, did I get laid out on that one. The professors came to me and said, a couple of your students scored in the 70th percentile of earning grad students. We don't care. We want the craft of research. It's like, the craft of what? The craft of research. It's from the University of Chicago. It's a book written in 1995, 31 years ago, since sold over 1 million copies, on how to do your doctoral dissertation. It's based on context, problem statement, solution, original problem statement. And I'm like, you want me to teach this to dyslexic high school kids? They said, yeah, we want them to know it before they come to college. No private school in the country goes near it. It's too advanced. And they're
Okay.
serious about them knowing this before they go to college. And then the teacher said, wow, this is great. Does this work for normal kids? And I said, no. And they said, come back when it does. So I came back 8 years later. Okay. So what I'm about to show you is now an advanced version of what I found that corrects for both of them. I showed you a basic version of word analysis followed by articulation. Now we're going to go really advanced.
Let's go.
And how I start off with doing this is universal themes and a movie review. As you'll notice with any solution from a dyslexic, it feels like it's coming out of left field. So the first thing we're going to start off with is a movie review. I need you to tell me a movie that, in your opinion, meets 3 criteria. You know
Okay.
it insanely well. You think it's one of the best of all times, and everybody's seen it.
Jesus. Ooh. Okay. People my age, I'm going to say Scarface.
Okay, Scarface, fantastic. Now, I want you to tell me in a one-word universal theme, a word that best represents Scarface, one universal theme that best represents the entire movie.
Classic.
Classic. Okay. Now, how long did that take you?
3 seconds.
Okay. How long do you think it would have taken somebody out of Harvard Business School who's Gen Ed?
Maybe less.
No, a hell of a lot longer.
Really? Why?
Yeah. I've done over 270 podcasts, most of them asking that question. And if you're not, so just so you know what's going on, we're playing in this part of the brain.
Okay.
They have this little neural activity. They're not
Okay.
playing in our sandbox. They take much longer. Really? There are advantages to being dyslexic, ADD, and ADHD. Okay. So now you would say classic. Now, what we would do if this was back in the 90s, we could market it with that. Back then, you just broadcast it out to everybody, a couple of major TV stations, a couple of major publications, blast it out to everybody. This is the 2020s. So the problem with what we have here is it's a broad brush. We need something much more specific. Okay. So what we would do is now I'm going to shock some of your audience. I'm going to terrify some of them because we're going to go back to high school English and we're going to discuss Shakespeare for a moment. It's only for a moment.
Okay.
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 I want you to think of any Shakespeare play you ever read in high school. You had a hero.
Oh my
Hero
God.
would want to do something based on one or more universal things. Then there'd be an ultimate villain who would be a character surrounded by some concepts and some universal themes. That ultimate villain would try to prevent the hero from accomplishing their goal. They would have
Okay.
a conflict in Act 1, accelerate like crazy in Act 2, resolve in Act 3. Sound
Okay.
familiar?
Yes.
I'm
I will.
using Shakespeare. So go ahead.
I have one thing to tell most people. Most people do not know this about me, but I was not a high school graduate. I did not graduate from high school until 2000, and
All
I
right.
went right from that, getting my GED. I went right to college, left college for a little while, joined the military, and then I finished both my degrees up after that.
And the military changed everything and gave you the discipline to do it.
Yes. So sorry, guys, I did not read any Shakespeare in high school.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
I've heard the
for a
horror.
discipline,
I've heard the horror stories, guys. Sorry.
some people love it. I did have, but anyway. So we're gonna take that structure and simplify it. I'm
Okay.
using it because Shakespeare's considered by a lot of English professors being the best at communication in English communication history.
Okay.
So
Gotcha.
what we're going to do is let's say we're going to go back. Your favorite movie was Scarface, right? Now let's say we have the students really interested in Scarface. That's their specialty. We're going to use the script. So what we're going to do is now remember we're assuming these kids can write basic body paragraphs. I'm
Okay.
going to have the student pick out their hero and then they're going to write out as many paragraphs as they can. For each paragraph, we're going to have the kid write out for each sentence the most important word. Then they're going to
Okay.
type out the most important word for each one, each sentence. We're going to have a list of them. Now we're going to have a issue where I want you to remember when you were raising Thomas. Did you ever notice that sometimes you had to get him to do things he really didn't want to do?
90% of the time.
Okay. Well, here we're telling Thomas we're in your speciality. Let's assume you love Scarface.
Yeah.
We're teaching you from the specific to the general. For most kids, it works. But when they don't want to do this, because now we're going to teach you how to read. Okay,
Okay.
we're literally teaching them how to read. We have to have the dads motivate them. No, I'm just going to tell your listeners, 90% of the clientele that I have, it's mom driven. Okay. I do work with some where it's dads driven. Okay. And this is where generally dads have the advantage over mom. All right. When the kid won't do the work.
Mm.
All right. So I want you to think back to Thomas when he was a kid. Remember those when I told you about the dislikes? First thing I tell parents is the first thing for a dislike, you need to find out the chore the kid hates the most. So for Thomas, when he was like 10, what's the chore he freaking hated?
Woo! Dishes.
Just absolutely hated it, right?
Delicious.
Okay. Does he have any younger siblings?
Yes.
Okay. So this really works really to help increase the agitation because we got to get them to do this assignment.
Okay.
All right. What we would do is I'd have the dads take the younger siblings and have them purposely mess up the dishes, like really bad.
Okay.
Okay. Put them in the microwave, let them get caked on, really just make it bad. All right. And the kids would have a blast with this. And then we would tell Thomas, well, you don't want to do your assignment. Now you got to do the dishes. And then have the younger ones mess it up again, have him keep redoing it until he eventually does what needs to get done.
Okay.
And then you videotape that and you send it to me. Okay. With Reed, it was cleaning the rabbit cages. He freaking hated it. And
Okay.
so when he wasn't doing his work, I said, Reed, please don't do your work. Don't do what your mom says, because then she said she's stopped cleaning the rabbit cages. They're going to get extra funky and you got to go out and clean them. And she's going to videotape it. And it's going to be so funny. The look on your face. Don't do your work. He just immediately went and did his work. Okay. I don't know how long you're going to have Thomas doing the dishes like that. But after a couple of nights, I think we convinced him to
I
do what
can
I'm about to ask.
guarantee it would not take long,
Okay.
especially having to redo something that he's already done. and you're promising to make it worse and worse each time. Absolutely not. He will do
Okay.
no high water. He is going to do exactly what you asked him to do because he is not going to want to see that again.
So what is it? What is this horrible thing I'm going to ask the kids to do? Literally, I'm going to teach them to read.
Okay.
And it's something that's not going to require you to sell your house. Literally, that's the cost. So what we're going to do is once we have the most important words, we are then going to have you go to Merriam-Webster's online dictionary,
Mhm.
and you're going to have Thomas pick out his favorite definition for each of the words. And he's going to type out the word. He's going to type out the definition. And he's going to try like heck to copy and paste, which you're not going to allow because you're looking over his shoulder. There is no trust here. Okay. And he's going to type that out for each one of them. Then he's going to pick his favorite one, what he thinks is the best, most important word. Then, like what you did in your movie review, it's a broad brush. We got to
Right.
get much more specific. So then we'll go to the thesaurus. You can do 5 synonyms, 10 synonyms, the entire level, multiple levels. And let's say you pick 10. He's going to type out the word and then go to the Merriam-Webster's online dictionary, pick out his definition, type out the definition. At some point over 6 to 12 months, and a lot of times after you show them what's going on, they can do this on their own, but you have to make sure they're not copying and pasting.
Gotcha.
Okay. Literally, sometimes I'll have parents put up like a camera on the back to watch.
Okay.
And
So why do you not want them copy and pasting?
because it ruins the whole thing. The whole point is if you type out the word in the definition,
Okay.
I don't know if it's 5 times 10, 15, 20. I have no idea. At some point, they're going to know exactly what that word is. Exactly. So now I'm going to ask, this is why. I'm about to ask you a deadly serious question that you're going to have to draw on everything you've done in a master's level to answer this.
Okay.
Let's go back to the science. The front part of the brain here is 2.5 times overactive. Yale says that is word analysis. How can you do word analysis if you don't know exactly what that word means? And I mean exactly. You can't. So you literally have to type out the word and the definition until you know it exactly. Okay. So
Yeah.
we're doing this over
Oh.
6.
Typing it out reinforces it. Okay.
Yes, and it's some number. And this is something that kids can do at home without a freaking $200 tutor working with them. Okay. I mean, literally, this is the family not going bankrupt. Okay. So they do that for 6 to 12 months. So what they do is they then go and they pick out the one that they best matches what's in their head.
Okay.
Okay. But before that, how do parents know when they can stop typing out the word? When the kid says, well, I know what it is, Dad. Okay, tell me exactly what the definition is. And it has to be near perfect with what the actual
Right.
definition is before you let it go. They say, okay, you don't have to do that word anymore. If it's not quite there, keep going.
Okay.
Or we got those dishes.
Hey.
Okay. So eventually we find the one that best matches what's in their head. Then we can use that because it's so much better. It's never going to be perfect, but it's much closer. They can then use that to laser focus to pick up the ultimate villain.
Okay.
I start off with a character, then I eventually move to concepts. Then I take the hero, the universal theme, and the villain, and we put them together in a short sentence. Do you see how that's a simple form of word analysis? I'm sorry, that's an advanced form of word analysis.
Yes.
Don't worry, the other part goes much quicker. Now we're going to do an advanced form of articulation. We're going to go because 3 really good reasons, best reasons you can come up with. For each reason, we're going to come up with a simple universal theme. Then we're going to go use that one word simple universal theme to go to the script of Scarface. I'm looking for a sentence that deals exactly with that universal theme at the beginning of the script and a one sentence quote at the end. We take those 2 quotes and put them together. That's our data. Then from those 2 quotes, we're going to form our topic sentence. Now, have you ever noticed in grad school and college that when you had your topic sentence and then your data, it didn't flow very well from one to the next?
Yes.
Did you ever think about applying a warrant to a body paragraph? There were 2 people that I met that had master's degrees that understood what that is. It's a major concept from a book, The Craft of Research. Okay. A warrant connects the topic sentence with the data by answering a how question and a why question. And then that you because of the same universal thing, you just need one warrant. You connect that. So you got your topic sentence, you're answering your how question, your why question, each one a sentence, and then you have your 2 quotes, and that's an advanced body paragraph.
Right. I suddenly feel like some things were left out on my college education.
Yes. And you went through a master's program. As I said, I met
Yeah.
two people with master's degrees that understood what a warrant was. Now, if you don't apply that in your writing going forward, you will be arrested.
Yeah,
That's a
because
joke.
I'm gonna have to look, but now I'm gonna have to look more into it because I started writing children's books and things like that, and occasionally I've considered going back to school for my PhD. I got some additional learning to do now.
Yes, it's in a book called The Craft of Research. It sold
Right.
over 1,000,000 copies.
Okay, I'm gonna have to remember that.
Yeah. So that's how. So in less than an hour, I showed you what the real system is. I showed you how to fix basic sentences. I showed you how to fix advanced body paragraphs.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, my competition can do that. It'll take them about, 6 to 18 months to do that full time.
Yeah, but we don't want to wait that long.
Right. So that stuff you can apply tonight. And parents ask, do you go further? Well, one of the more advanced students we're working with, we discussed him earlier, his
Mhm.
off air, his name is Grayson. Grayson is in the 99th percentile for math and science. He is
Wow.
not dyslexic in the least, no learning concerns whatsoever. Grayson wants to go to get his PhD, work for NASA to terraform Mars.
Wow. Okay.
Okay. Yes, we discussed him earlier, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So just so everybody knows, Grayson's 10. I'm teaching his dad to teach him. And where we're taking Grayson is how to eventually submit an article for publication. We will get it past test rejection. It will be rejected by a reviewer. Then we're
Mhm.
going to connect him up with a senior professor at one of the top 10 technical universities in America. And he's going to go in there saying, I got rejected for my article. Here's what a professor rejected me for. Can you work with me to help me get this published? And watch the professor's jaw drop because Grayson will be about 10 years ahead of time.
Right. That's outstanding.
So we go all the way. We're basically doing the full blown craft of research with them.
Right. Honestly, I need to follow this because I'm gonna have to reach out to you because I want to find out how Grayson's doing. In the next few months, next year or so, because this is that gives me a little hope for other people out there. But let me ask you a question though.
Mhm.
For dads listening, me most of us most dads have probably gotten this wrong. They've probably missed the signs.
Mhm.
What if you found out your kids are dyslexic? What's the first thing that you should do? Even though you've missed signs early on, what's the first thing that you should do?
Well, if your kid's in kindergarten,
Hmm.
what you should do is what every parent should do in kindergarten:
Okay.
contact Yale. Okay. Just type in Yale dyslexia and say, my kid's in kindergarten. How do
Okay.
I test for dyslexia? And they will tell you.
Okay.
And then you have to literally force this. This is where being a dad is an advantage.
Okay.
Okay. I want you to think of the school system knowing that there's perfectly well a system out there to save your kid, and they're
Mhm.
telling you, no, we're not doing it,
Yeah.
and seeing if you're going to take that.
Right. But most kids get misdiagnosed. Oh,
Right. But I'm just telling you, I want you to put this in a mental frame.
okay.
You're ex-military.
Yes.
There is a clearly understood by decades way to solve this. And it's cheap if you do it early. And the
Okay.
school's going to tell you, no, we're not going to do the obvious. Are you going to take that?
Shit, no.
Okay, exactly. That's how you have, that's, again, there's certain advantages to being dads. Okay. So what do I mean? So just, what the science is. If the school goes and says, okay, we'll test the kids. What's your source? It's freaking Yale.
Hmm.
Okay. The Yale Center for Dyslexia and Creative Studies. It's a clearinghouse. So you go and contact them. They say, here's how you test for dyslexia. Oh, it's 40, $50 a kid. The teacher can do it, something like that.
Hmm.
Once you find out they're dyslexic, then what you do is, okay, how do we teach them? Well, we've only been solving this at the federal level for freaking decades.
Hmm.
Since before you were in freaking middle school, we've been working on this.
Right.
We have at Yale, there's other clearinghouses, it's just the most famous. Literally dozens of courses. They'll tell you how to fix this, the reading issue. Pick what you want,
Okay.
apply it until the end of third grade. In the United States, K through 3, we learn to read. Fourth and above, we read to learn. If the kid passes the third grade reading test, they're statistically going to be okay. If they're close to it, the school can still manage it. If they flunk that test badly, you're in that $75,000 school for 4 to 5 years, or you're
Mhm.
working with me, or you're not fixing the darn problem. Okay.
I
Now,
like I like hearing it a little bit better. Can
I
I?
tell parents that if they're younger, then I would just say contact Yale, try that first,
Okay.
okay? But I tend to work with kids 4th and above for that reason. We do work with younger kids, but it takes them astronomically longer, all right? Let's say it's after 4th grade, and you choose one of the like, I'll give you an example. The Gowl School is literally doing its 100th anniversary. If you get the scholarship, it's like 60 grand a year to live there and to go through all this. Otherwise, it's like 86,000. You can look it up. It's GOW.org. If you
Okay.
select the Gowl School, you will be immensely happy with what they produce. Extraordinarily happy. If you don't mind sending your kid off to boarding school, it's middle of nowhere, south of Buffalo, New York. Nobody lives by it. I mean,
Okay.
hardly anybody. Okay. If you want to stay home and do it, we figured out most of my competition is $500 to $1,000 a month for stuff that doesn't work. We dropped it to $147 a month. Our instructor, her name is Angela. Why should you listen to her? Angela is a certified elementary school teacher in the state of Texas with a 2-year master's degree and 11 years of experience. Then she became a homeschooling mom, and she has taught her son, August, how to do this. She's teaching her older son, Alfred, who's not dyslexic. He's a 12-year-old super STEM kid. He's
Okay.
going to be an engineer, scientist, or something along those lines. And she has taught her kids this process.
Okay.
She's there to answer your questions once a week. Why do we lower it to 147? Because most parents don't have 500 to $1,000 a month unless you got a couple of BMWs sitting in the driveway that are relatively new.
Exactly.
Okay, I don't think you got a couple of BMWs in your driveway. All right.
Or
So
unfortunately, now.
so that's what we found works for most parents. You work with it's on a monthly basis. She's there once a week to answer your questions. Everything. The first course we put up on sentences, we were supposed to have that done in February. It's
Mhm.
now May. Okay. She would Angela's like, well, what about this question? And I would send her 5,000 word report. What about this question? I sent her 10,000 words. I'm not joking. To eventually get this just right. That's Angela. Okay.
Okay.
So she's been there on both sides of the fences. And with the parents, if you don't want to do it, what some parents do is they'll go to high school, better college. If you're in college, get somebody who's in the Writing Assistance Center who is just known by their professors who can interact well with their peers or younger kids, and we can teach them to teach it. Or you can hire a certified Orton Gillingham tutor, which takes 2 years after a bachelor's degree, costs $11,000 to a non-for-profit, and they're 130 to 325 for a 50-minute session, and they'll be with your kid several hours a week. And starting in med school, if they're in a master's program, they're still with them. That's
So,
another option.
Russell, before we close, where can people contact you at?
Best thing to do is just go to skool.com, type in dyslexia classes,
Okay.
and we have our courses right there for parents, and sign up, and we will walk you through how to do this.
Okay. Any recommended reading for us?
Well, just to understand the science, not the solution, because their solution isn't particularly good. This book,
Okay.
okay? And then you're going to literally want to find your kid's speciality. You have to ask them because you probably don't know what it is.
Okay.
You get an audio book first from Audible, and then get a printed book. Don't use a library book. They're going to want to mark the living heck out of it. I've seen that happen so many times.
Well, I have Russell. Listen, I was really kind of happy to kind of give you the floor today because you had a perspective on dyslexia that I didn't understand and didn't know about. So I had all these questions, but I'm really happy that you kind of took center stage because honestly, where I was heading at honestly would not have done enough justice for this. So honest, that's why I kind of just left the questions because I liked where you went with this today. I'd like to stay in touch so we can kind of,
Okay.
you know, I know people are gonna have questions. I always have people like message me and ask me questions after for shows instead of, sending comments or whatever, but it is what it is. Thank you again again, I apologize that it took us so long to get together, but you are, listen, 200 something, 250, 270 episodes
I
that you've
did.
got.
Just when we met on Podmatch. I
Yeah.
was the number one guest in March. I was the number one guest in April.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
I did 262 podcasts my first year. I've now passed 250 5-star reviews, which really matters. I've done over 270 podcasts. So I'm now shifting over more towards going on stage to public speak.
Okay.
But if I wasn't dyslexic, there's no way I could have done this. I go on a lot of podcasts that have nothing to do with dyslexia and solve problems in just about everything.
Yeah, but here's the thing is that in my this show is about solving father issues, But
For
for
sure.
me, any dad listening, and men, we have a short attention span, but this was about showing dads solutions,
For sure.
and that's why I wanted you to I was happy for you to kind of take the floor and tell us everything that you could tell us. I mean, an hour really isn't long enough, because I feel like there's a lot more that we could talk about this. So again, thank you for coming on the show. I'm gonna add all your information on all the links and everything that I post on Instagram and that. So if people need to get a hold of you, they have questions, comments, concerns, I'm gonna have them reach out to you directly.
Okay, fantastic.
Outstanding. Hey, Russell, again, thanks again for coming on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, Russell Van Brockland, thank you so much. And hopefully we'll have you back again in a couple of months, or maybe we'll see you on stage and we'll have a conversation about that, see how that's going.
Be great.
Outstanding, Russell. Have a good day. Take care of yourself.
Thanks.